Welcome to This Week in Real Estate with Jonathan Harmon. Listen in as him and other members of the J Harmon Home Team speak about all things real estate with local experts here in the Middle Tennessee area. Be sure to check out jharmonhometeam.com for more information and how to get in touch with our amazing team. Welcome to the show.
And good morning. We are live. How are you, Leslie?
I'm good. How are you, Harmon?
Making it. It was a long weekend. How about you?
It was a good weekend.
Yeah? Did you do anything exciting?
Late, per usual, concert last night. So
who'd
it was
you
a
see?
good one. Boy Genius.
I don't know who that is.
They're kind of like a indie supergroup. I call them indie.
Indie and supergroup typically doesn't go together.
So it's three ladies who are very famous in, I don't know what their genre is, and they're like best friends, and they came together and they've done 2 albums. So
I see. Where was the concert at?
it was at Centennial Park.
Oh.
It was like a 3-day. It was almost like a festival, but they travel. So
I see.
we just went to the one day.
I've never been to a concert in Centennial.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was in front of the Parthenon. They had it all lit up. It was neat.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it was fun.
That is awesome. Very good. So this is my friend Leslie Tate from Gateway Title. I've known you for several years now.
Mm-hmm.
And J Harmon Home Team typically does all of our closings with Gateway Title. The majority of them. We have some others that we hand off as well. Some other title companies. There's one other title company in particular. I'm gonna go ahead and name them because it's my show. Highwater Title. We do some work with them as well. They do a great job. But that's pretty much it. Like it's you guys and them and maybe a one-off here or there. And it's because of the work that y'all do and the professionalism that you handle our clients and our situation, if you will. So we're going to talk all things title. We're going to talk about the market. We're going to talk about perspective is real estate's a funny business, right? So you have the perspective of the real estate agent that most of the time it is either really optimistic or really pessimistic. Very rarely are you going to find a real estate agent that's like even keeled right down the middle.
Right.
They're kind of unicorns in this business, to be honest. And then you have the mortgage lenders that are kind of like wringing hands a little bit. They're a little worried. They're analyzing everything. The Fed chair sneezed today, so that means that the rates are going to go up by 0.75%. And it's like, oh my gosh, you're analyzing everything. Or bless their hearts, there's a few that are just clueless and they're just like, the rates are going to be what they're going to be.
Right.
And you just, you have to learn who's who on that.
And what to listen to.
Oh my gosh, yes. And then you got the title company that's sitting there going, all right, here's what has to happen, right? They're the quarterbacks, right? They're saying, no, in order for this to close, it has to be like this. Well, can it be? No, it can't be like that. No, it can't be like that. And I'm like, well, no, we can't. No, it has to be like this. And I love that because it provides balance to the transaction as long as those 3 parties can work together, can communicate with each other, can understand that each of those parties, even if you don't like what they're saying, they're coming from a place of love. They're trying to get the business done.
Everyone's trying to get everyone to the closing table.
That's right.
We all have our different.
And ultimately take care of that client.
Right.
Right. And make sure that it's not just a smooth transaction, that for sure, but also that it is a safe transaction, so to speak, right? Because there's a lot of traps and pitfalls and potential for, quite frankly, disaster
Right.
To occur. So that's what I love about you guys is y'all anticipate things, you communicate it well, and you have the experience to be able to say, no, this is the right course of action. Very rarely is there a scenario where it's like, I have no idea what to do with this.
Yeah. Yeah. We've only had a few that I can think of where we were just like, this is a title claim. You're going to have to get this sorted out by your other underwriter. We try our hardest to help everyone get it resolved so that we can close on it and that it's not a nightmare for the people. So I have a few that I can recall that we were just like, and they were refinances. Luckily, they weren't sales, so
sure.
that they had to go back and actually file claims, and sort it out. So
and then you sit there and you look over the history of that property and you're like, what were they thinking?
Oh yeah, and there's been 3 or 4 refinances since then that no one noticed it was an issue, which makes it worse because then they're like, well, why is it an issue now?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
You can uncover a lot.
Yes, indeed. And man, just in the little bit that I've done compared to the vast body of work that you guys have done, I've had a few of those scenarios where like you question, well, why did that happen, or how did and it's an impossible question,
Right.
because somebody goofed,
Did something weird. Yeah.
That's the answer. Well, why? I have no idea.
Because people do weird things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about several things. Before we get into that, another mutual friend of ours, Mr. Bryan Nale over at Primis Mortgage, is a proud supporter of the Spread the Positive Network and all things that happen here in the city of Murfreesboro and Rutherford County, and also happens to be a client of you guys, does
And
a
a
lot
good
of
friend.
lot of business with y'all. So let's hear from Bryan real quick.
Hey, my name is Bryan Nale. I'm a mortgage loan officer with Primis Bank Mortgage. I want to tell you that I absolutely love being a member of the Spread the Positive Network. It's such a great mission and helps bring so much positivity to our community. It's truly a pleasure to be part of. There are a lot of ways to navigate financing a home, and in markets like this, having the advice of a trusted local professional is key to making sure you get the right advice for your specific circumstances. Whether you're interested in the purchase of a new home, second home, or have a need for a refinance, I'd love to earn your trust. If I can help you nail your mortgage, call me at 615-243-3976 or visit nailyourmortgage.com.
Primis Mortgage is a subsidiary of Primis Bank, a member FDIC, equal housing opportunity. As always, all loans are subject to approval. Primis Mortgage, NMLS number 1894879.
Thing that you do for the Spread the Positive Network and again for our community here, and just generally being a good dude, and good at your job. Thank you for that. All right, let's talk first common issues. So from a title perspective, what are the things that you run into on a regular basis that justify your existence?
So a lot of what we deal with are like unreleased liens. So someone sells their property, they pay off their mortgage, but the Bank of America, whoever, doesn't ever actually release it. So it's
What does that mean?
They don't. So whenever you take out a mortgage, it gets filed with the land records so that anyone going forward knows that you owe this bank money for this house. And then once it's paid off, the company has to file a release with the land records so that then everyone knows it was actually paid off and it's no longer.
So notice that there was a loan, and now notice that the loan is gone.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And often it just doesn't get released like it's supposed to. So then we have to go and get them to release it and go back however far and get proof that it was paid off and deal with that. And same with judgments. So if you are in like a civil suit, they can file a claim or file a lien in your name, and then it technically attaches to any property. So we often have to deal with clearing those up. Is it an actual match to our seller? And if it is, does it need to be paid off? Often those aren't released. So that's a pretty common one that we have to deal with and clean them up.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've dealt with that before where, there's a unpaid rent from however long ago when you rented an apartment at Chelsea Place.
Yeah.
We talked about that.
Yeah.
And
did not have a lien.
But that's attached to me. But then if I buy a piece of property and it's never, even though that lien doesn't go on that property immediately because there's no mechanism for that.
Right.
I go to sell that property. You search for a lien in my name, and all of a sudden, that's how it's going to get paid.
Right. So federal tax liens, state tax liens, child support, any kind of civil judgment, those are all very common things that we see pop up that people have to pay off at closing and deal with. Yeah.
Yeah, that's always fun.
Yeah,
right?
It's never fun. And most of the time the answer from people is, oh, I don't remember that. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Well, that was 10 years ago. Hasn't that rolled off by this point? Yeah, right. That's funny.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I've always found interesting, especially as I interact with more people that are moving to Middle Tennessee, things are a little bit different in the state of Tennessee versus other places as far as how title work goes, who does it, how it's held, all of those kinds of things. What are some unique things about the state of Tennessee that make a title company? Because in a lot of places they have that you have to have an attorney to do that. What is it in the state of Tennessee that is different, I guess?
I'm not sure. I know I've heard a lot from Californians about how
Mm-hmm.
different they do it. I know they hold escrow for, they call it escrow instead of closing. So you put a significant portion down, I think, and then it has to stay there in escrow for quite a while. I'm not sure compared to other states I've never done title in another state, so I'm not really sure. I know attorneys still have to prepare the legal documents.
But we have title search
Mm-hmm.
instead of an abstract. I don't know what the difference is in those two things.
Mm-hmm. I see them called either one in Tennessee. So some people call it abstracting and some people call it searching. I'm not sure if there's a technical difference. We call it title searching, what we do. But I'm sure every state is different how they do the land records, and you have to learn, how people file things and what attaches and what doesn't attach and all that. So it's definitely different from state to state.
Sure.
But yeah, it's probably like any other law. There's little nuances and
Right. And Tennessee has very recently gone almost all digital. Is that correct?
yeah. So most counties are e-filing, so you can record things. You don't actually have to go to the registrar's office to file them. And then also searching wise, there's a few that we still, I think Bedford's one of them. We still have to go to Bedford. They're not all current with their indexes. So after a certain year, you have to go to them. But luckily, most of them are online. We hear Glenn talk about how he used to go to the courthouses and search, and he would make like a map for the day of all the ones he had to go to. So
That's crazy.
that's definitely an advantage in technology that we can appreciate.
Yeah. But it also opens up potential for holes where this page for whatever reason didn't get scanned or whatever, and it.
Yeah, so that's one of the scary things about title searching is you're dependent on a human searching the property. So a lot of people, I think, imagine that you type in the property address and then everything that's attached to it pops up. But really, they have to go in and search from every single name of who owned that property or was associated with it, heirs, and find anything attached to it that way. So it's a pretty lengthy process and it's complicated. So you've got human error potential there for a title search, but also you're trusting that the registrar's office filed everything correctly. And that's where we, like, for example, we'll have a mortgage recorded and we know it's recorded and we're doing our final policy, but we notice that they didn't index the subdivision correctly. So they spelled the subdivision wrong, which means someone could ultimately miss it in a title search going forward. So luckily, Rutherford County, they're wonderful. They do a really great job, but there's not all the counties are equal. So you really have to stay on top of them and make sure it's indexed correctly.
Well, and I had one time. This is years and years and years ago. The property was in Smyrna, Rutherford County. Mortgage was recorded in Rutherford County. For whatever reason, the mortgage company, when the property got paid off, they released the lien. The release was filed in Warren County.
In a different county. Yikes.
I don't even know how that's possible, but it did. It happened. It took them 2 weeks to figure it out.
Oh, and then another 4 weeks to get it corrected, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah. That happens. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. Well, and compounding that issue, this was probably, I don't know, 2012, 2013, somewhere around there. So the mortgage company that released the lien had gone under in 2009. So all of their files were sold to another company, and then that was sold to another company. And so it was a pain.
That's the tricky thing, is figuring out who actually owns a mortgage, because, you can take out your loan with Regions and then they sell it to someone else and then that one goes under and then someone else assumes it, and they don't always file documents. So that's one of the fun mysteries in our industry, is tracking down who actually has a lien and then getting them to do what they're supposed
So
to
you're
do.
really kind of like detectives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's actually what I like about title search. Like, sometimes we have to find people on Facebook and be like, hey, you sold this property 10 years ago, but the deed wasn't signed correctly. And would you mind? And
Right.
It's kind of fun.
Have you had people ask, well, what are you going to pay me for it?
We've been pretty lucky. Well, we've had some that just refuse. They're like, they'll ignore us or whatever. They're like, but then we've had I had an older couple I had to track down, and I just happened to Google their names and I found their landline on like yellowpages.com or something. And they answered and they were like, well, sure, honey, we'll come up there. They came up and signed everything they needed to. And I was just so thankful for people like that.
I went and knocked on a door one time, and it was an heir situation where, there was 3 heirs, but only 2 of them signed it. And like, it was this whole thing. And I had to go knock on this dude's door. And I mean, that you don't know what you're walking into there, because he may not have even known that it got sold, and I mean it, all kinds of stuff. And
this is a full service realtor here,
Yeah.
Jonathan Harmon,
Yeah.
knocking on doors.
I
Yeah.
was not comfortable with
No.
that. I'm just saying,
But you did it for your client.
it had to be done. That's right. All right, so let's talk about this real quick. So one of the things that I hear a lot of times when I go over like a net proceeds sheet or something with someone, we get to the title cost, right? And so you guys charge a fee to do the closing, to record all the documents, all that kind of stuff. There's some taxes sometimes. It just depends on which side you're on, all that. But there's always a question, well, do I need title insurance, right? And title insurance is how much? Do I really need that? What is that? All of that kind of stuff. So as people, and especially prices have gone up, rates are up, all of that kind of stuff, people are looking for ways to cut costs.
Right.
It is my opinion that title insurance is not where you look to cut cost. So tell me why I'm right about that.
Okay. So, we were just talking about the process of title searching, how there's already room for potential error with a human error, searching it, the indexing. There are things that could be missed anyways, just from a human searching. It's a human product. But there's also things in a title search that... So title insurance, what it does is it protects someone's ownership in the property. So we are guaranteeing going forward that you're going to have full interest in this property and no one else is going to have any kind of claim, liens or heirs, or anyone else is going to own it. It's yours. And we do the same for the lender by a title insurance policy. So there are things, that's why we search the property. We look for any kind of risk. Is there anything we don't feel comfortable with in order to give you this guarantee? And there are things in a title search that we can't even detect. And one of the big ones is fraud. So if
That
someone,
makes sense,
so if someone signed on behalf of an LLC and they really didn't have the authority, we wouldn't know that by looking at a title search, especially several owners back. Or if someone signed a POA and it wasn't a legitimate POA, or it was a POA that had been verbally revoked. Those are things that we can't find. So,
Or they purposely left out an heir.
Like
the long lost son that nobody knew about.
Estates are super high risk because, if there's any errors that weren't disclosed or no one knew about, they could technically come forward and have
Or
an
if it goes a
interest.
couple generations deep, right? Like there was this daughter, but this daughter had 3 kids.
Right.
People only knew about these 2. And,
Yeah, it's terrifying. So there's a lot of things that could pop up. And a lot of times people don't realize that we use their insurance policies without them knowing. So we might be doing a closing and there's a certain risk that we're not in love with in the title search, but we know that these underwriters have already underwritten on it, and all the underwriters have a treaty. So if they've written a policy on that, they can say, we'll take any risk going forward since we already did a policy on it, as long as you don't file a claim at this time, right? Because most things aren't going to become an issue, but they could. So they're saying, you can write this new policy. If something becomes an issue from said issue, we'll be the ones to take the claim for that.
Is it from a date forward, or is it specific to that potential issue, or
if they do a treaty where they're saying we indemnify you, it's a specific issue. So they'll write a letter and say regarding this issue, and they'll make sure that it's pretty clear what the issue is. We'll take the risk on it. So there's a lot of the times that people don't even know. It's not a full claim. They didn't have some disaster, but we feel comfortable doing a new policy because of whatever the title search history is with other policies. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So don't cut costs on title insurance.
And it's a one-time fee, and you never have to pay it again. So it might seem like extra at the closing table, but it's not like an annual premium that you have to keep doing.
Well, and it's one of those things, just like most insurance, right? It seems expensive until you got to use it.
Until you don't have it, right? So.
Yep, that's right. So we'll switch gears a little bit. So, the big talk, of course, right now in real estate in general is we're definitely in a flux, if you will. We're in a shifting, changing market. Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? I mean, that's an impossible question, right? I mean, it's all about perspective. In some ways, this market is better. It's more normal. It's more, will be more predictable. We're not quite to the predictability stage yet, but it's certainly more sustainable. What are you guys seeing? I mean, compare right now, this month of June, it's almost over, but this month of June to 2 years ago, June. What's the difference for you guys?
So I always think back to 2020, the COVID boom. Like for so many industries, COVID was terrible. For real estate, it took off. So we were
Big time.
underwater. I mean, it was because the interest rates were so low, everyone was refinancing. So that was kind of a crazy time, but it did last so long that it became normal. So we had crazy high numbers, and it was just insane how much, business there was. And
you do that in number of closings.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so,
because you guys had some record months for a couple years.
Yeah. So it was a boom, and it stayed pretty steady like that for a couple years. We didn't really notice things starting to slow down until last year, probably mid-year.
Right. About this time last year.
Right. So while it's slowing down and everyone feels uncomfortable about that, it's probably what normal is supposed to feel like.
Yes.
So we're not supposed to go home every night, stressed and underwater and all that.
With a stack of files.
Yes,
literally
right.
like this.
Right. So I think we are entering more of a normal phase. I've been impressed with how purchases have still held up. Refinances are gone. There's really only refinances for special scenarios like
Life
divorces,
events.
life
Yeah.
events, construction to perm and stuff like that. But people are still buying and selling. And one thing that I think is neat is how the market does adjust. So you are seeing seller credits again. For a while, you didn't even have to look at that portion on the contract. The seller was not paying anything.
And you've probably done more THDA files than you did in the previous, 3 years combined, probably?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's crazy the last 2 weeks how many THDA. We were talking about that. We were like, another THDA loan? So, yeah, that's been one big trend. Seller credits, the buy downs. So yeah, I think the market's adjusting to
Dominoes, home sale contingencies.
Yes, it's all back to, you really have to pay attention to the contract and it's not as cookie cutter as it was during where it was such a seller's market.
And that's what I tell people now is the market better or worse? That's not the right question.
No.
The right question is it normalizing or is it still completely abnormal? And in the last, now 2 years ago, those previous 3 years, it was completely abnormal.
It was chaos.
It is not normal to have almost every house go over asking price. It is not normal to have multiple offers on quite literally every single listing.
Right.
It is not normal for THDA to be practically eliminated from even consideration.
Right.
And at one point, it got crazy enough where even just a standard old FHA, you couldn't get it. It was all conventional with a lot of money down and over asking price and no inspections and no appraisal contingency and.
Right. Not only were the purchase prices crazy, but if you had anything other than a conventional loan, your offer wouldn't get accepted.
Yeah.
Which puts out a lot of home buyers, and makes the cycle.
And that's not normal. And I would say that is ultimately not healthy.
Yeah.
And it's certainly not predictable. I mean, it is predictable. The predictability is that you got to sell your soul and your firstborn child to get something done.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, so I guess summing that point up, for me now, if we can get proper expectations on this side of things, if we can get proper expectations, this is probably, I hesitate to use the word better, but it's at least
it's healthy.
Yeah, it's right.
Yeah.
It was not right what we were dealing with before.
No.
And I don't like dealing with whole right and wrong. We can debate philosophically, whatever. I don't care. But this is definitely more right.
Balanced, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there's balance to the force.
Yes.
That's right. Okay, very good. All right, so let me ask this question then. So kind of playing off of that, because of all of that, are there new issues that you guys are dealing with now? And I can imagine a few of them. So I'm not going to say it. I want to see if I'm right. Are there issues that you guys are dealing with now on title that you didn't deal with 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, probably?
I think what I've always noticed, so I've been doing this for 8 years. I've always noticed during our slow period, so even when it was crazy, everyone expected it to be slower in the winter. because people have more time on their hands, title searchers, underwriters, appraisers, there's new issues. People have more time to focus on things that they might have not noticed before. So I do tend to see, or it's the bottom of the barrel coming to sell when it's slower. So lots of issues that might not have, someone's been sitting on a property for 20 years and they decide to sell it because the market, so we see a lot of those types of things, or an underwriter finds something that they don't like because they had more time to do it. I've noticed which is probably, again, more balanced. People probably should be finding those things to care about so that they can make sure it's not an issue, but it's not as rapid fire as it was during COVID. I don't think that's what you were looking for, or what you were thinking of.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, obviously So let's unpack that for a second. So we still have an inventory issue, right? There's still a lack of properties available, but also prices are starting to soften a little bit, and we are seeing some of the properties that might have been unsellable come back up, and they're taking a forefront because that's quite literally what's available right now, right? And so yes, you're seeing some of that. Hesitate to use the word, but bottom barrel stuff.
I used it.
Yeah, I know, but you're seeing that come back up or come up finally. We're also seeing people. I think some of it is when the market is going crazy, right? People wonder, well, is this the top? Is this the top? Is this the top? And you don't know that you've hit the top until you start coming back down. And so as we start to see things start to deflate just a little bit, you're going to see some of those people that are waiting for the top to come out. And a lot of times, those are people that are sitting on properties that they've been paid off for however long, and they have no idea what the title work holds because maybe it's been in their family for 6 generations, and it's been paid off since 1940. And
hasn't been touched.
It hasn't been touched. And so all kinds of things can show up in that time. We had one, I guess it's been almost 2 years ago now, and it was a weird discrepancy on the actual survey line. This was in downtown Murfreesboro, right? Typically, you don't get surveys for those kind of properties. But a driveway had been built weird, and the garage was sitting. It was an addition on an addition on an addition. The garage was sitting a little weird, and lo and behold, there was probably 40 square feet of that garage it was on another piece of property. So what do you do about that? I mean, you can negotiate with the next door neighbor to try to buy that. You can, I guess, tear the garage down.
Yeah, which is a big value to the property.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, it's an odd situation, and it had never come up because somebody had been sitting on that property for
however
decades.
many years, right?
Yeah.
We just had. Speaking of war stories and title, we had so when you move a property line, this is something that comes up pretty often. So a lot of people will go through the process correctly. They'll get it replatted. If it's under 5 acres, they'll go and get a plat done, and they'll get the county and city to approve it. It'll go through all of that, but they forget to actually convey the property. So the neighbor still has to convey the property, and it's typically situations like you're talking about where they realize their driveway is on their neighbor's property, or they want to build something, so they need an extra 4 feet, and they'll forget to actually convey it. So we had one recently where some heirs were selling their mother's estate, and they needed to move the property line because they realized at that time that the patio was on the property. So they platted it, they got that recorded, they closed on it, and they actually remembered to do the quitclaim deed, but they did it after the closing. So after this person bought this house,
so the person that was buying it didn't actually have the right to buy it.
They never got it. The neighbors conveyed it to the heirs of the estate after these other people had already bought it. And so it went through several cycles of other closings, not paying attention, and they didn't have that 4 feet. And the heirs, we were talking about how that can add so much drama. I mean, they were long gone. We got in touch with 2 of them. One of them had passed away. He had children that were, so they couldn't just convey it to our buyers, our sellers, so that they could sell it. So
they owned a little 4-foot section of land.
These heirs did, and they sold the property like 10 years ago.
That is wild.
Yeah.
So that's similar to the garage situation where, I'm pretty sure that Granddaddy shook hands with the neighbor and wrote him a check for $500 or whatever. But I mean, that was
they never actually
1960 something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's
so people
wild.
make messes. Yeah.
Yes, they do. Hey, I know we mentioned Bryan. I don't think we actually played his commercial, did we?
Yeah, you did.
We did?
Mhm.
Okay.
Oh.
I don't remember if we did the little whistling thing.
Oh, not a commercial. No, I
don't
heard
think
him.
we did. Yeah.
Let's
All right.
whistle.
Let's listen to Bryan Nale real quick.
Hey, my name is Bryan Nale. I'm a mortgage loan officer with Primis Mortgage. I want to tell you that I absolutely love being a member of the Spread the Positive Network. It's such a great mission and helps bring so much positivity to our community. It's truly a pleasure to be part of. There are a lot of ways to navigate financing a home, and in markets like this, having the advice of a trusted local professional is key to making sure you get the right advice for your specific circumstances. Whether you're interested in the purchase of a new home, second home, or have a need for a refinance, I'd love to earn your trust. If I can help you nail your mortgage, call me at 615-243-3976 or visit nailyourmortgage.com.
Primis Mortgage is a subsidiary of Primis Bank, a member FDIC, equal housing opportunity. As always, all loans are subject to approval. Primis Mortgage, NMLS number 1894879.
Earlier, but now we've heard from him twice because we love him that
Yeah,
much.
You can't have too much, Bryan.
You can never have too much Bryan Nale. Nail that mortgage.
Yeah.
So that's all right. Here's the deal. I have missed doing that a couple of episodes, so
Rather do it
we're
twice
making it
than
up.
not. Yeah.
That's right. All right. No worries. All right. So war stories, you told me a couple of those. I'm formulating a question.
Mhm.
It's about refinances.
Okay.
We're going to get into Leslie's brain and Leslie's prediction here. Okay.
Oh no.
Yeah. 8 years worth of experience, been through all kinds of ups and downs. What do you think? I'm still trying to formulate this. Sorry, I'm still finishing my coffee too.
It's early. It's
all
Monday.
right, so you have purchases going on, right? You have people that are buying homes right now. Interest rates are sitting in at the very best that we've had in the last 4 or 5 months, 5.85, all the way through the sixes and into
7.
even 7.5, right? So that's kind of where we've been for a while now. What is the magic number that's going to create a refi boom? So you've been through a refi boom, right? How much does it have to drop for you to see people that are at 7 start to refi?
I think I heard a lender. Is it 2 points? Is it down to 5? I've heard a lender. We asked.
I'm asking you. I don't know.
I'm not Dave Ramsey by any means. I don't know.
Thank goodness.
I know. I feel like, okay, so when the boom happened, they were in the 2s and 3s.
Right.
So a lot of people saw it kind of as free money. And I have a feeling a lot of those people were probably in the 5s and 6s. So maybe 2 points? I don't know.
I mean, I
Don't quote me.
refied into the very high 1% on a 15-year.
Oh, wow.
It was like 1.875 or something from like 3.75, right? And that made sense
To do it.
for me.
Well, and a lot of lenders are going to do incentives where they waive a lot of closing fees to get people to refinance. So
Sure.
I do think the margins are going to be smaller because everyone's kind of banking on being able to refinance right now. You know, everyone's saying, what is it, marry the house, date the rate. So I think I think the margins will be smaller than what we've seen because so many people are going to be offering incentives to get people to refinance.
Well, and on that note, so let's talk about that for a second. So if you are in the market, if you are buying right now and you're going to move, and this is like a whole episode right here, there's reluctance for people to sell in order to buy because if they're sitting at 3.5% or 2.5% or whatever in their current situation, with the prices going up and the rates going up, it's actually going to cost them more to move into the exact same house if they were to sell and buy. Totally get that, right? And so they're sitting on their property, which creates a shortage of inventory, which makes prices go up. I mean, it's all connected.
Cyclical, yeah.
But the other side of that is if you are in the market and you do buy and you are at a 7% interest rate, let's say, or 6.5 or whatever, somewhere up here, when you start to look at, should I refi or should I buy something, right? There's a legitimate question. Well, do you like your house is always where I start. If you like your house, then don't sell it.
Right.
And then the second piece of that is we walk through a break-even analysis. And so this is part of what you guys do on The backside of it, right, is you say, okay, you reconcile all the costs that are associated with doing a refi, whether it's the lender fees, your fees, all of those. If that cost me $7,000 to do a refi, probably won't. Let's say it's more like $3,000, and I'm going to adjust my mortgage by $100 a month, right? You take $3,000, take your savings, divide that into it, and it tells you how long it's going to take you to recoup your money.
Right. So
right?
if you know you're going to be at the house long enough, it's worth it.
That's right.
If
it's
not,
$100 and it's $3,000, it's 30 months that you have to stay there in order to, at month 31, you make money.
right.
Right? So are you going to stay there at least 31 months?
Right.
The answer is no, don't do the refi.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
So as we see that number, that 3,000 number drop a little bit, then it's going to make sense to do the refi with a smaller drop in rate because you can recoup your money faster.
Right.
So we'll see.
Well, and this is something that I have not seen on my end quite a bit, but I've heard about like how VA loans are assumable. And so I kind of was interested to see during this period while rates were higher if more people would be trying to do that. Do you see that on your end? I feel like you could do an episode with Bryan on that. I mean,
that's an interesting thing. So as the market was doing what it was doing 2 years ago, my thought process was so VA is assumable, FHA is assumable, and most conventionals are not. So as we saw those assumable mortgages at 1.875% or whatever, I was thinking, oh, this is going to be a marketing piece, right? We can sell the assumable mortgage. But a couple things happened. One, FHA and VA loans were not getting as accepted as often, so there's not as many of them. So that's one. Two, if I got that loan and I put 20% down and then 3 years I've paid down on it, maybe I paid extra even, right? And now I've got, and my house price has gone up, right? So 2019, 2020, we had 31% appreciation. 2021 even, we had 26 to 31% appreciation. So if my house price has gone up 70% in that period of time and I've paid down my mortgage, right, I might only have a $200,000 balance left on my mortgage and it's a $500,000 house. Well, where's the other $300K coming from?
right.
So I have this little bit that I can do as an assumable. That's a pain in and of itself. But I've still got to have another mortgage that'll essentially become a second mortgage.
Right. And you have to qualify. I mean, right, you
Yeah.
have to be, for a VA, you'd have to be a veteran,
Correct.
So, and FHA has all the guidelines. So, yeah, I could see how it would be hard to get someone approved for that.
It sounded great 3 years ago.
But it's not happening.
It's just not much.
Yeah.
No.
I haven't seen it on our end, so I've been curious about it.
Well, and the assumption process, the assumption process is not easy.
No.
It's one of those things that I don't know. You said 8 years, so probably not quite long enough. When I got into the business, short sales were really ever done short sales, and not in any kind of volume like they did in 2009 through probably 13. And so it was definitely a case of building the ship as we're flying it, and what you did in 2010 was not the same way you did a short sale in 2013.
Right.
And it was crazy. The guidelines were being written literally as we were doing them. And I think that was out of necessity, right? Like we had to do that. But I think that the assumption process, there's probably some loose guidelines, but there's no necessity for people to write those guidelines. So it's just kind of
a niche.
It's just kind of not happening.
Yeah.
It sounded great.
It makes sense, but not. Yeah.
Yep. Became more cumbersome than what we thought it would be. All right. So last couple things. Let's talk about your dog for a second.
Oliver.
Sweet boy.
My sweet little Oliver.
Yeah.
Not so little.
No, he's gotten big.
Yeah, he's a big boy. He's very strong.
He's very strong.
Yeah, we did his. So everyone who sees Oliver thinks he's a border collie, which is cute. But he's not. We did his DNA results, and he's like 30-something pit. He's got Brittany Spaniel in him, like 10% Rottweiler, a very odd mix of things. But
which is crazy because he's got long hair.
Long hair, and he's the only one. we keep in touch with his litter mates because we rescued him and we're in a group. There was one other long-haired one, and I'd love to see what he looks like. The rest are short-haired, so he looks totally different from all of them. But almost every single time we go out, people are like, "Is that a border collie?"
He very much looks like
yeah,
that.
and we're like, "No, not really." And people don't believe us, but
Yeah.
he's a sweetie.
That's awesome.
But he's a frequenter of Cedar Glades. He loves it.
He is. Yeah,
that was his first brewery,
and we love him there. Well, he was little then.
He was 8 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bitty. And then of course your husband's awesome as well. So I always like to bring in the human element.
Yes.
Yep. Lee's a neat dude. So.
He's awesome, and we have 2 cats too. So we have
I
2.
didn't know that about you.
Yeah, they don't come to the brewery, so
Thank goodness.
oh, they're wonderful.
I don't like cats.
You'll have to come over. You'll like them.
Cats don't like
He's like,
me.
no.
No.
They pick it up from you.
It's mutual. Yeah, it all works out. So anyway,
well,
bless your heart for having cats. Somebody's got to take care of them. That's fine.
it's me.
Yeah, that's funny. All right, y'all. Leslie Tate with Gateway Title. If you have title issues, if you have a situation, even look, I'm not like most agents. Okay, if you're going to do a for sale by owner, please get a great title company.
Yeah.
Please, please, please. And if you are going to do a for sale by owner, I could not recommend anyone more than I can recommend Gateway Title to help you guys through that situation. Don't do a for sale by owner. But if you're just
I was going to say don't do that either. But.
no, but if you're just hell bent on doing it, then at least get some good help on the legal side of things.
Yeah.
And Gateway does a great job with that. I guess that's about it. You got anything else?
No, just thank you for having me, Harmon.
Anything
and
cool going on in your world that you want to plug outside of title world?
No, not that I can think of. That sounds pretty boring, but I'll let you know if I think of anything.
Okay.
Yep.
Sounds great. All right, y'all. Have a great rest of the week. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Thanks, Harmon.